Hi. So today I want to talk to you about the one thing I really wish I knew as an elder first-time mother. I gave birth to my daughter when I was 33 years old, pregnant throughout pretty much my entire 32nd year of life. And I was completely unprepared for this one thing. But before we jump into it, if you are new here, I'm new here. Hi, welcome. So glad to have you here on this channel. Welcome to The Spinning Mama. My name is Sonia David, and I am so stoked to talk to you about all things postpartum and caring for and loving for those people who are in a position of being postpartum. And we're not thinking about postpartum only in terms of the physical. However, we'll start with the fact that postpartum is anywhere from the first few weeks after birth to up to 7 years, depending on who you ask. I personally think it's a lifelong process of learning who we are, unlearning, and then relearning, and doing so in connection with the people around us who we love. Again, not limited to only biological women or even to people who've given biological birth. Anytime a child comes into our lives, we change. Our brains change. We build new connections, right? And we rely on our community in completely different and new ways. And so I want to talk about that experience since it's the experience that I am currently going through. I will also be sharing bits of my journey as well. So with that said, one thing that I think we all should know before, especially giving vaginal birth, is that if you go through a spontaneous labor and you are trying to kind of feel out where you're at in your last days of pregnancy, your last weeks of pregnancy, Braxton Hicks contractions are not nothing. They don't exactly hurt by my assessment, but they're not nothing. But what I didn't expect was that because I'm a person who experienced such egregious periods, that labor pain wouldn't feel all that different to me from Braxton Hicks contractions. So the one thing that I think everyone should know before entering into that phase of labor and delivery is trust your instincts, trust yourself, believe yourself. And so with that, here's a little bit of a story. So when I was in my postpartum period, or when I was about to give birth to my daughter, I was concerned that I would not be allowed to eat any food at the hospital. So my mother and I went to this place called Bear Burger, and I had my vegan Impossible Burger, and I enjoyed it as much as I could between contractions. Okay, I was in labor. I just didn't know. And the labor wasn't doing very much, but I was in labor eating my dinner. And I'm sitting there talking to my mom, who's watching me kind of like twist in my seat while I eat my burger. And she's like, so at what point do we go to the hospital? Because here's the thing, you're in labor. And I said to her, I'm probably fine. I can finish this meal in peace, right? Like we can wait to go to the hospital, right? So my mom was like, okay. And I was like, okay, I gotta get this last bite in. And it was so important to me to get this last bite in before I went to the hospital because I didn't want to be starved. And we get there, we get out of the Bear Burger, we're riding along. It's the bumpiest ride of my whole entire life, and not due to labor, but due to potholes, Greenwich. There was so many potholes absolutely everywhere. It was truly horrendous. But we got there in one piece, mostly. And I called a couple of different people, and I was talking to them, trying to figure out where I went for L&D and where I needed to go, what we needed to do to park, all these things. But each time that I called into the hospital, I would call in and I would say, hey, where's labor and delivery and how do we park? I'm, looking to get set up for my labor and delivery. And they would say, well, who's the patient? And I was like, me. And they were like, oh, okay, you don't sound like you're in labor. And I was like, well, I want you to understand me, right? I don't want to be on the phone. Where do I go? Right? But like, there's this expectation, right, that will be out of our minds. And the thing was it a peaceful experience internally? In many ways, yes. But was it a painless experience internally? No. No, it was not. But what I needed to do was stay focused on what it was that I needed to do, because each step of this process was going into the unknown. And the one thing I knew was that I could trust myself. And I'm really glad that I did, because when I tell you I was sitting in the passenger seat looking at the attendant who was going to park our car so that I could go inside and give birth to my baby, he said to me, "Who's the patient?" And I was like, me. Me. Right? But maybe I didn't look as pregnant as I was. I don't know. A lot of people throughout my pregnancy didn't seem to realize that I was as pregnant as I was. So naturally, the day that I would give birth, people were still asking me, so which one of you's the patient? And like, yeah, so it was fun. So I go inside, and then I get wheeled up, and my mom gets her way up as well. We go to the labor and delivery room, chilling, and we're like that for a couple of hours, but some different things start changing with the way that my baby is responding to the process. And I noticed that she's pretty bradycardic, or that her heart rate is pretty low, which, you know, we don't like to see in a labor and delivery situation. And I wish that I had let people know that I was not especially anxious. But unfortunately, people also look at things like your medical records and say, well, you've had anxiety and depression. Are you sure you're okay? Like, yes, I'm fine. I just never had a baby before. So I had to trust myself and let them know I'm not especially stressed out. I am in labor, and I do believe that at the end of this night, there will be a baby. You will not go home without meeting my daughter. And they were like, okay, yeah, but you're probably gonna give birth tomorrow. And I was just like, okay. Hope you're here for her delivery then. And I just sort of like sunk into a place where I could relax as much as I could. I ultimately was instructed to try the epidural just because they were thinking that I was stressed and that was causing my child to be in distress. Turns out the umbilical cord was just wrapped around her neck. Nothing I could have done would have changed that. But I knew in my core that it was something that was beyond our control, and the most that I could do was relax and continue to point out when anything was feeling off or when anything was not quite the way that it should be. And for all of the things that did not work well, her father was present, and his presence actually really assisted in the process, because between my mother and him, both of them were really paying attention to what it was that I was saying I needed. Were paying attention to what it was that I was saying was happening with my body. And even though I couldn't move my legs as much anymore, and even though I couldn't move my lower body as much anymore, I willed myself to feel each of the steps and phases in my labor as much as I possibly could. I sank deep into my body. And as I was doing that, could feel, okay, there's movement, there's changes. So in that process of trusting myself and knowing there was movement and changes, I called the doctor because I was pretty sure that this girl was coming whether they were there or not, and it wasn't even gonna hurt that bad. I'd just send her dad down there and say, catch. So they came in and checked her. Well, the labor and delivery nurses came in and took a look, and then were astonished that within the couple of hours I had been there, I was now crowning. So they went to go grab the doctor, and the rest became the beginning of my postpartum journey. It was an amazing experience, but I just think that one thing that really would have helped me as I was preparing for that process and that experience would have been to trust myself a little bit more and to communicate that trust in a clearer way. Because I didn't necessarily want to go for the epidural, at least not as early as I did. I really felt confident in myself and my ability to go through the labor process pretty far without needing any additional medication. And I wish I had pushed for that, because my daughter and I were both extremely calm in that process. And when she was born, she came out so peaceful, not in like a scary way. She cried and then she was just like, "What's up?" And so I wish that, you know, I had the fortitude and internal awareness that what I knew of myself in that moment was what I needed other people to know, rather than to feel like I had to do things in a particular way. And I wish you all the absolute best in your postpartum period, but I thought I'd start out with a story and share with you the one thing that I wish I had known before I had my vaginal birth. Yeah, there's other stuff that I wish hadn't happened or that I wish could be different, but that's the one thing I wish I knew more and had leaned into more, that I could have controlled. So I wanted to share that all with you. If you enjoyed this video, if it was entertaining or inspirational to you, please go ahead and give it a like. If you want more videos like this and others in the postpartum space, please subscribe. I will be posting pre-recorded videos every week, but I go live 3 times a week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5:30, where I just go over stories either that viewers submit or that I find online of people who are sharing their stories and going through it. And I will be connecting with them and sharing some love, because I feel like this world is full of all of the things that we don't need and that we don't want, right? So why not be an element for change in the positive? And so in this space, it'll be a community where we, again, are building the foundations for connection and creating space for one another as we redefine who we are, as we reconnect with who we are, and we move forward in peace in this postpartum period and find ourselves in postpartum joy. So with that, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you real soon in the next video. Bye.